Merry meet and welcome to Soulful Sunday here at Ariel's Corner. This is Ariel Gatoga and we are streaming live on YouTube. Moderating today for us are the lovely Honeypaw and the lovely Jason. Thank you so much, moderators. And thank you so much to everybody for joining us today. Our website is located at arielscorner.com, arielscorner.com. That's our home base for where you can find all of our offerings. We have free courses, free booklets, free guided meditations, free lectures, free articles, and all kinds of cool stuff. So check it out, arielscorner.com. You'll notice that in the headers and footers of each page on that website, you will find links to our social media, including our private Facebook group and our Discord server. And those are places that you can come to be part of our community, to offer and receive support, especially if you are working on any of our courses. Those are good places to get your questions answered. Speaking of questions, we do have a chat thread open up on this stream, and please chat amongst yourselves, and if you happen to have a question for me, you can put it in that chat thread, and I will definitely do my best to get to it before the end of the stream. I do work on Sundays rather early, so if I'm running over and I don't get a chance to get to your question, just bring that question over to Discord or to Facebook, and we'll do our best to get it answered there. We have a podcast hub, and you can find that at arielspodcasts.com. arielspodcasts.com. There's nothing there that's different than what we have on YouTube. It's just that it's organized in a way that many people find easier to navigate. So that's just an alternative way to navigate through the different podcasts that we have. arielspodcasts.com. We also have a shop, and that's located at arielscornershop.com. arielscornershop.com. And boy, have I been busy with work and family and stuff over the last couple of weeks, so I've not gotten to the new products that I want to get to, but we'll get some new products up real soon, I promise. But we do have some great t-shirts, mugs, and beanies right now. If you'd like to donate to this channel, you can do that by going to paypal.me/Ariel Gatoga, paypal.me/Ariel Gatoga. On YouTube, you could always use a super sticker, super chat, or super thanks if you feel like giving a donation and staying right on the platform. Or if you'd like to use a credit card or Apple Pay, something like that, debit card, we have a donate link on our website in the footer of every page. arielscorner.com, arielscorner.com. If you are in a place where it is safe and appropriate, please close your eyes and begin to take some nice, long, slow, deep, relaxing breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. With every inhale, feel more light and peace entering your body and mind. With every exhale, let go of all tension in your body, along with anything in your mind that you do not want. Inhaling peace, exhaling as you let go. We picture ourselves on top of a beautiful mountain in the center of a circular grove of trees. In the center of our circle, a bonfire blazes forth, and it lights us and the grove with a sacred golden light. This is the light of perfect love and perfect trust, and it easily and efficiently burns away everything unlike itself, leaving us safe and serene. Into this sacred space, we invoke the presence of our Creator. To many of us, our Creator reveals themselves to be a mother and father, a goddess and God. We also call upon our angels, our guides, our teachers. We ask that they be with us and walk with us, lead us as we walk upon the way, helping us to become happier, more magical, more peaceful, more powerful, and more loving people. Blessed be. The ego mind is based on a single idea, and the idea is I am separate. The idea of being separate doesn't sound like that big of a deal when you first hear it. It's like, well, so what? But if you understand that that's the beginning, that is the head of a tempest that moves throughout all the collective consciousness of humanity and separating us into individual egos, individual identities, each believing that we are alone. We are separate from our Creator. We're separate from one another. And the idea of I am separate, just like every other idea, expands and grows. It's the nature of everything in our mind to expand and grow. The mind is by nature expansive. So it doesn't matter what the thought is, whether the thought is true or false, a thought will expand and will gather evidence to support its belief and support its existence. The idea of I'm separate then will metastasize into many different types of thoughts and activities and motivations. And the idea of I am separate is the basis of all fear. And fear is the primary response of the ego to anything. Now, the collective ego we often refer to as the demiurge. The demiurge is an ancient concept that was adopted by the Gnostics, but it originated in Greek thought. The demiurge, demiurgos, means architect or craftsperson. And so what this represents to us is that our collective ego, our collective experience that is based upon the idea that I am separate is created by this demiurge. And remember, the demiurge isn't anything other than the idea itself put into action. So the idea of I am separate becomes we are separate. And we are separate from one another. We are separate from our Creator. We are separate from our good. And remember that the bottom line is fear. And so the demiurge creates a world that we experience that's based upon fear. And we are afraid all the time when we interact with this world. And a lot of us try to prove to ourselves that we're not afraid by altering our behaviors, etc. And the only way to escape the fear is to disregard the thought system entirely. It's part of the ego's game. It's part of the whole ego's system to respond to fear by letting you think that you can get rid of fear by having more fearful thoughts. You can feel safe in an unsafe world by doubling down on the idea that you're separate. And the ego is very sly because it's our own creativity that we've used against us. A lot of times people are afraid of the demiurge. They're afraid of the ego. They think it's Satan out there that's so crafty and so cunning, and that we're just so unable to come up against it. We are so unable to defend ourselves against this powerful ego, this powerful demiurge, when in reality it's our own creativity. It's our own ingenious mind, our own genius that we're using against ourselves. But we're doing it in such a way that we don't take responsibility for our own minds, and then it seems like it's happening to us. And the ego will, because of the nature of the thought system that it's created for itself, support that and will try to distract us. Will do everything it can to distract us from our own power so that we are busy going out there, trying to make our way in a very scary and very unreasonable world. The reason why this works is because of the nature of the ability to create that we are given. The nature of who we are is creative beings. Just the same way that the infinite creates us, we also create. And when we project our ideas onto the screen of space, then we interact with those ideas and they become real for us. And when we are creating by by projecting ideas onto the screen of space based on an untruth, the genesis of which is I am separate, then an entire world arises out of that, a world based on fear. And it's not that the world itself is so different from the world that was created for us. It's just that we can't see the world that was created for us because we've superimposed all of these other images on top of it, these other experiences on top of it. And this goes on for generation after generation, lifetime after lifetime, and we become very engrooved. We become encrusted with these ideas, and these grooves are very powerful, and the habitual nature of our thinking is very powerful. And it's very easy for us to disown our responsibility because we do believe we're victims of this world. We do believe it's happening to us. We do believe that there's nothing that we can do about it. It's a scary world. Now, one of the ways that the demiurge keeps us imprisoned, and remember, this is a prison of our own making as children of the divine, but the way that we are imprisoned by this is by co-opting our deep minds, the habitual thought patterns that we carry with us, that we don't ever question, we never notice, we fall asleep to, and then we say, oh, there's nothing we can do. Isn't it awful? But anybody that's studied the craft, even for a small amount of time, can question that quite legitimately and say, well, wait a minute. I know that that's not true. I know I can change my thought patterns. I've changed my thought pattern for this spell over here, and it was very successful. I changed my thought pattern for that spell over there, and I was very successful. So once you can question it on a very basic personal level, it's not that far of a jump to start questioning it on a more global level. In other words, when we are presented with a news item, for instance, and we roll that news item around and around in our minds, and we just take it at face value, we make decisions based upon that news item, especially decisions based on what everybody's telling us that news item means, and then we just start to go with it. And we don't question it. We don't question what's really happening. We just go with it, and we let the demiurge be the architect of the world through our thinking. And we just continue to do like good little soldiers and project images onto the screen of space that the demiurge presents to us and says, see, isn't it scary? Aren't you scared? Isn't this awful? And the ego, the demiurge, the ego, is constantly trying to convince us that we can go to it for our safety. And that's why people are so addicted to things like news broadcasts. And they're so addicted to things like gossip and so addicted to things like having conversations where we talk about how bad everything is. The reason why that happens is because we are falling in line with the dictates of the ego. And it takes a great deal of courage to say, whoa, wait a minute. I have my own mind. I can think any way I want to. And I don't have to think these thoughts. I don't even have to think about these things. I remember once somebody said, oh, did you hear about blah, blah, blah? And I said, well, I haven't been watching the news this week. How could you not? Don't you think that's irresponsible? You have to be informed. And I didn't respond to them because I didn't want to continue with that conversation. But in my mind, I thought, well, I am informed, but I allow myself to be informed by infinite intelligence, not by the news, not by a YouTube video, not by you, not by people talking about something. I mean, I don't know about you, but if something really big happens, I hear about it within seconds. I don't have to be sitting on my screen listening over and over again in order to be informed. If something big happens, I hear about it immediately. Somebody will tell me. I don't need to listen to the news to know about that. I don't need to be indoctrinated by the demiurge in order to be informed about what's going on. But the thing is when the news comes that something big happens, what tends to happen is we say, therefore, I have to sit and listen to what everybody's talking about it. I have to listen to what everybody's saying about it. I have to get all of my information now. I have to get an endless stream of reporting about what's happening. And what happens with that is that we allow ourselves to continue to be indoctrinated, not by the news broadcasts, but by the demiurge itself through the news broadcasts. It's not so much the news broadcast that's the problem. It's the decision that we're making about the news broadcast that is the problem. And that's the demiurge's mantra. You're not safe, you're separate. You're not safe, you're separate. Be afraid. Be afraid. And then our minds take that, then the creative nature of our minds is such that we project that onto the screen of space and we say, see? Demiurge was right. We have so much to be afraid of. Look what's happening. We don't realize that we are complicit. We are complicit. Now, we have a technique that we use a lot when we're dealing with personal crisis, and it's the pivot technique, where we see, I've got a problem. Let's say it's a relationship problem. We're having a big argument, and in order to use the pivot technique, all I do is look at the problem, understand what I think the problem is, be clear on the problem. We're having this argument. I'm right. They're wrong. Whatever it is. That's the problem. We're having an argument. I think I'm right. They think they're right, etc. We can't seem to get along right now. But I don't want this. I want to heal this. So what I do is I say, I am now pivoting from this problem to the infinite. And then I use the names of God or those divine qualities. And I just start considering the divine qualities. Maybe there's one in particular that I want to work on with this. Maybe it's divine love. Or maybe I don't know which quality, and I just go through them all, which it's all fine. So just by rote is fine. I just list them. Divine life, infinite soul, spirit, intelligence, truth, love, law, presence. You know what I'm saying? Just over and over again. And I just by rote saturate my thinking with those things. And because I'm so busy thinking about those things, the idea of the argument is driven away from my mind. Not because I'm forcing it out. It's just because it doesn't exist anymore, because all I'm doing is contemplating the divine quality of the infinite. And by doing that, it may take more than one session. It may take a whole week. It may take however long it takes. It may take no time at all. By doing that, the situation resolves itself and there's no more problem. The argument's gone. We make up. We forget that even happened. Same thing can happen if you're having a problem with money. The same thing can happen if you're having a problem with your health. You can use that same technique where you define what you think the problem is and then very purposefully and conscientiously pivot and turn your attention away from that and place all your attention on the divine instead. And the more you just saturate your mind with these ideas of the divine, then you're no longer projecting onto the screen of space based on your old thought habit. And the situation solves itself. Well, if we can do that on a personal level, we can do that on any level we want to. And so my recommendation is the next time you are confronted, which will be today, with really, really bad news about the world, really, really awful news about the way people are and the way things are, and the idea that unless you're really involved in understanding all of the minutia about whatever this problem is, that you're somehow being uninformed and irresponsible. Instead of that, take a piece of it that's in front of you and say, this is the problem I'm seeing. And I'm going to now pivot, and I'm going to think of the divine instead. And then start to do whatever you can do to repetitively consider a quality or a series of qualities of the divine, and get your mind busy thinking about those things instead. And the very doing of that will drive the idea of whatever that thing is out of your mind completely. You don't have to drive it out of your mind. It'll do it. It'll do it for you, because your mind is so immersed in contemplating these divine qualities. And you keep that doing. You keep that up with whatever this thing is. And you'll possibly be surprised at not only how better you feel, but how the situation changes on some level or another. And it doesn't take a lot of people doing that. That's the best news in the world. It really doesn't take a lot of light to destroy the darkness in a room. In fact, it takes very little light to destroy the darkness in the room. And it takes very few individual thinkers to conscientiously pivot away from a problem and to contemplate instead the qualities of the divine for that darkness to be dispelled. And I think it's a fun experiment just to do it, just to see how much influence you actually have over something. And it can be something that seems like, well, there's no way I could have influence over this, right? But whatever it is that's bothering you the most, run that idea on it, run that process on it, where you define the problem as best you can, and then you consciously pivot from it and contemplate the divine. And then your task, though, is to, as you go throughout the day, not to get hooked by that thing again, whatever it happens to be, not to get hooked by it. And if you are hooked by it, notice it, and conscientiously and purposefully pivot away and do it again. Do it again. I usually give myself 2 or 3 sessions like that a day when I'm dealing with any kind of problem, where I define the problem, pivot away, and immerse my mind in the divine qualities. And it only takes a few minutes of doing that, like 3 to 5 minutes of doing that. And then I do my best not to think about whatever it is until the next session. So if I know I'm going to do that once in the morning and once at night, I do my best to not think about it throughout the day. And if I notice that my mind starts to obsess on it, I just use the off switch. Those of you who don't know the off switch, you can find it on my YouTube channel, just on YouTube, search Gatoga off switch, and you can just stop thinking about it. Just stop thinking about it completely. Now, of course, if it's a personal issue and something comes up that needs your attention, you don't just stop thinking about it. You give it your attention and you allow yourself to be guided as far as what the best action is. But as soon as you've addressed whatever needs to be addressed, then you get it out of your mind. You shut it off. You shut it down. And if you can't shut it down, then you excuse yourself and you have a moment by yourself and run that process in the moment, where you consider the problem and you purposefully pivot away from it and start to contemplate the divine qualities. You can find, I have several articles and videos on the separate divine qualities. And we have, frequently we associate each quality with a different archangel and with a different planet and different aspects of the divine. But none of that's necessary. If you just understand that the basic qualities of the divine are life, it's what makes your heart beat. Soul, it's what makes you an expression of the divine yourself. You were created perfect. Spirit, that is the indestructible nature of the divine. And since you are spirit, you're indestructible. You're indestructible because you're so much bigger than your body. And therefore, if you understand that, then your body is protected by spirit too. intelligence. The same intelligence that creates solar systems creates you and works through you, and therefore you are one with the same intelligence of the universe. Infinite intelligence. Truth. Divine truth. 1 + 1 will equal 2 for all eternity. And if the demiurge and its minions start to try to tell you and the rest of the world 1 + 1 = 5, 1 + 1 = 5, they can get a lot of people to believe it, but they can't make it so. So if you immerse yourself in divine truth and you just call upon divine truth, that breaks all that stuff up. But you have to invoke it. You have to consider it. You have to contemplate it. Otherwise, it's just there in potential. Divine love. Love literally conquers all, because love is a peaceful, relaxed experience that is compassionate and gracious and all-loving with no strings attached. It's an unconditional experience of constant love. And the Creator loves you no matter what you've done, what you haven't done, loves everybody else out there that you think are so bad, and also the ones that you think are so good equally. And it's the grand equalizer. And therefore, if you are at one with that quality of divine love, all of the problems in your life start to equalize themselves and those things drop away. Divine law. The laws of the infinite never fail. Cause and effect always happen. Now we can, because we are so powerful and so filled with freedom of choice, we can create nonsensical ideas and project them onto the screen of space that look as though we are defying the laws of the infinite, but we're not. We're just fantasizing. We're just living in an illusory world when we do that. But when we invoke the law of the infinite, everything must conform to that law. That means that we wake up out of that dream. If you have this idea, for instance, in the three-dimensional world, and we're not saying that all the laws of the three-dimensional world coincide with the laws of the infinite, but the laws of the three-dimensional world, one of them is the law of gravity on this earth, and it keeps your feet on the ground. Now, if you are fantasizing and dreaming that you're flying, that means that in your mind, you are working with a law that's not within the law of the three dimensions. You're working outside of the three-dimensional law. But when you wake up, I guarantee you, your feet are back on the ground. But when we wake up to divine law, it's even more profound, because the divine laws are all there for our benefit. They are all there for our benefit and for the benefit of all. Divine presence. Omnipresence. Wherever you go, there is the divine, whether you're willing to experience it or not. Whether you're willing to have that conscious understanding and experience and knowledge of that divine presence, it is inconsequential. It's still there. So those are the 8 basic principles. Or I'm sorry, those are the those are the 8 basic qualities of the infinite right there. Divine qualities. And there's many other ones. There's the divine compassion, divine beauty, and all of those, probably if you were being very organized, they could fall under one of those eight principles. But the point isn't so much that you understand things scientifically about what the divine principles are. It's just that you get a sense of what the divine principles are so that you can pivot from the problem into the solution. And the solution is always those principles. Always those principles. And if your mind is saturated on those principles, then you are in the process of solution. If your mind is saturated on the demiurge and or the ego, then you are in the process of the problem. You are involved in the problem. And it's always one or the other. You can't be a little bit egoic, just like you can't be a little bit divine. It's one or the other. When you move into the understanding of the divine, the world of the ego stops being real to you. You may still see it. Of course you will. You'll still see it because you still have physical eyes. You'll still understand it because you've lived it, but you're not hooked by it anymore. And since you're not hooked by it anymore, you're not under its spell. And if you're not under its spell, it's easy for other people to not be under its spell. And let me tell you, that doesn't happen by proselytizing and telling people it's not real. Don't believe it. They have to come to that understanding in their own way at their own time. But you seeing the world as it is, rather than as you were once hypnotized to believe it is, holds the space open for other people to see it too. So that's all that matters. And like I said, it doesn't take very many people opening their minds, opening their eyes to the understanding that the divine is where our minds must be centered if we are to be happy, if we are to experience the truth of who we are. And to do that, we must understand and recognize when we are under the spell of the ego and choose to pivot away from it. And you know you're under the spell of the ego if you're worried, if you're afraid, if you're upset, if you're obsessing over the past or the future, if you're arguing, if you need to be right, if you really, really need to be right about something, you're under the spell of the ego. Now, there are times when you are not under the spell of the ego, when you are 100% involved with spiritual truth, where you will be guided to assert yourself, maybe even what seems to be aggressively, but you're not coming from this same perspective as when you are doubling down on your ego, where you need to be right, by making them wrong. When you're coming from the spiritual perspective, you know you're right just because the infinite is right. And you're not trying to make other people wrong. You're trying to inspire other people. Actually, that's not true. Let's not say that. You are living your truth so purely that others can't help but be inspired by you. It's something that is not something you do once. It's a lifestyle. And you can always have plenty of material. Think about alchemy. You're never going to run out of base metals in this world to transform into gold. There's always going to be some nonsense going on out there that you get hooked by. And the second you get hooked by it, you start to go, oh, yay, more base metals. I can't wait to see what this gold looks like as I pivot away from this and I contemplate the principles of the infinite. I can't wait to see what this transforms itself into. It's going to be great. So you have plenty of opportunity. It's a wonderful life path where you take wherever you are and whatever's going on in your vicinity, and you say, I'm going to take a stand. I'm going to define what I think this problem is to the best of my ability, and I'm going to pivot away from it completely and instead consider the divine qualities. And I'm going to do that until I'm not thinking about this thing anymore. And then when I do that, I'm going to drop whatever this is from my mind as best as I can until later on today when I'm going to do that same process again. And I'm going to keep doing this I'm going to keep doing this 2 or 3 times a day until I see a change in my life. And you're either going to see the problem completely disappear in the world, or it's not going to affect you anymore. One of the two. Either way, your spell has worked. It's an alchemical process. And a lot of times when people think of alchemy, they think, oh, that sounds so complicated, because they think of all of those lab experiments and things of the ancient alchemists. But really, once you boil it all down, pardon the pun, it's really just nothing more than this, what we're talking about. You take the base metal, you define it, and you pivot. And you replace your idea of this base metal into the gold of the divine qualities. and you allow that to do the work for you and through you. That's your only task. You're not responsible for the transformation. You're not responsible for anything other than keeping your mind focused on the divine to the best of your ability. And if you can't, use a technique like the off switch during the day. It's up to us to take charge of our minds. And when we can take charge of our minds, then we are acting like adepts. We are magi. And the more you take charge of your mind like that, the more peaceful and happy you become, even in the midst of awful chaos around you. And we know what the Psalms tell us about that. They say that the meek will inherit the earth. And the reason why is because we're so strong. When we do that, we are being so strong. We are at one with the infinite. We are at one with truth, and nothing can touch us. So of course we inherit the earth, because our strength is self-evident. So take some time today, the sooner the better, and notice what's vexing you, and go with the thing that's immediate. You don't try to do everything at once. Just take one little thing that's vexing you, and run this process. And do it at least 2 or 3 times a day. And in between each session, drop it from your mind. If you can't drop it, use the off switch technique. If that doesn't work, excuse yourself and run the process again on it. And you'll see very soon that whatever that problem is going to really change for you in one way or another, and it's going to be beautiful. And you can do it. It's not a difficult thing that we're talking about doing. It's not complicated. It just takes a willingness to want to move out of the addictive nature of the demiurge, out of the addictive nature of the ego, and into something else. Because we're addicted to the problems. We all are. We're addicted to the news. We're addicted to the fear. We're addicted to the hate. We're addicted to all of it. It gives us a payoff. But it's just like any other drug. It loses its luster real soon. And it's best if it loses its luster now. And we understand, I can have gold instead of this. I don't need this. I can have gold instead of this. I want my gold. So go get your gold. You can do it. It's going to be great. You're going to prove this to yourself. Thank you so much for spending some time with me. I so appreciate you. Until next time, blessed be. See if we have any questions. Looks like we have a few. Hi, Ariel. Where can I buy the Book of Psalms? It's not in your e-shop. The Book of Psalms. Okay, there's, I use several different books of Psalms, and they're mostly, I think, available on Amazon. If you like a particular book of Psalms in one of my videos, usually in the video description on YouTube, I give a link for that. So look in the video description of the video that you like that book of Psalms, and there, especially the Psalms that the Psalm videos I've done over the last probably 12 months, there should be a link, so you should be able to find it. Any ideas how to differentiate between selfless love and selfish love? I'm not sure that it's necessary to worry about it, to tell you the truth. If you can relax your body, relax your mind, and allow for what you're calling love to rise up into your awareness, if it makes you feel peaceful, if it makes you feel happy, and it makes you feel compassionate toward the person, then it's love. Selfish love is a contradictory term. That's usually obsession. We call it love. But if it's true love, it's usually a relaxed emotion, it's a peaceful emotion, and it has a sense of compassion. You know, when you say, I love you, where were you today? That's not really loving. I love you. Why aren't you calling me? That's not really loving. If you're saying, I love you, and I really hope you had a great day today. That's loving. I love you and I want the best for you. That's loving. So I guess the motivation behind it and whether or not you have an unconditional desire for their happiness and for them to do well, and it makes you feel good. A lot of times we get stuck in these unloving relationships and we call it love, and then we have to either transform the relationship, which sometimes can be challenging, especially if the other person likes it the way it is, or we have to move on. And I think a lot of us, because of the condition of our own ego mind, we believe that what we deserve is something that is more of a prison than an actual loving relationship, and we go after people that aren't good for us. We're attracted to the people that aren't good for us. And as we continue in our spiritual work, we are prone less and less to be attracted to those kinds of relationships. And the relationships that are in our lives that are like that, we have the tendency to either heal them or to move away from them. Are dreams about one's goal the night after performing a spell a good or bad sign, or is it just something that happens, no big deal? It could be any of those things. You can't say that one thing is true for everybody. It depends on the dream. If you had a really good dream about it, it might be a communication from your deep mind. Yay, it's working. If you're having a scary dream about it, that could be either a communication from your deep mind, maybe you should revisit this thing and make sure this is what you really want. Or it could be a part of your habit pattern coming up to be released. The thing that might be involved in your mind that is thwarting your success on this thing. And if it could just be that it was what you were thinking about when you went to sleep, and then that thought is playing over and over in your mind as you're sleeping, and it is no big deal. So you really have to determine that for yourself. Is darkness evil, or is it just an element heavily misunderstood? Darkness isn't evil. It's the absence of light. There's no principle of darkness. Darkness is not its own principle. There's only the principle of light. And when light is removed or blocked from any place, darkness is what appears to be experienced. So if and in this three-dimensional reality, we need darkness. We can't have light all the time here. So darkness isn't evil, but the idea of evil in and of itself is a concoction of the demiurge. The idea of evil is a false notion. And it's easy to say that, but it's hard to understand that when we see such awful, heinous, despicable behavior, sick, disgusting behavior in the world. It's very easy to say, that's just pure evil. There is no such thing. There is no such thing, but there is very profound illness. There is profound illness. There is profound dysfunction. So we have to understand that pure evil is profound dysfunction, is profound illness. But evil is not something that is created by the infinite, therefore it can't exist. But we can believe that it exists, and we can project evil onto the screen of space and interact with it and have experiences of evil here that are very real for us. But we have to understand that it's contingent upon us to take charge of our minds and to allow the infinite's thought system to think through us in order to replace what we're experiencing in our mind and then thus on the screen of space from an ego-based thought system that is based on fear to the infinite's thought system, which is based on truth. Well, those were great questions. Thank you so much for those. And thank you so much to the amazing moderators, Honeypot and Jason and Dre. And we will see everybody on Wednesday for Witchy Wednesday. Until next time, blessed be.